Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to mumble! Introducing first, in the black corner, in his trademark office suit jacket tie, with a record of over 8,000 tax returns and 1,000 VAS statements lodged, standing 5'11" and weighing in at... He is the man with the tax plan, the sultan of spreadsheets, the baron of VAS statements, the king of ka-ching. Hailing from Ballarat, Victoria, Peter Angel! And in the white corner, sporting his struggling artist casuals, with a record of 1.5 feature-length films, 1 web series and numerous award-winning shorts, standing 5'10" and weighing in at... The Kubrick of Claptrap, the Mac Daddy of the MacGuffin, the Caesar of subtext, the champion of all things indie, the arrogant know-it-all Israeli bastard, now hailing from Melbourne, Victoria, the unpronounceable... How do you say this? Itai Guberman! Sit back and enjoy as they trade opinion jabs, fighting for their favourites and battling politely through the best and worst of... well, anything they see fit, really. The accountant versus the filmmaker. The financial consultant versus the artist. What can possibly go wrong? Tune in and find out on the Best and Worst podcast, where it ain't all black and white.
Hello and welcome to the Best and Worst podcast. My name's Peter Angel and I'm talking today with...
Hi everyone. Just a quick message to hopefully avoid any confusion and keep you all up to date. For those unaware, our Best and Worst podcast co-founder and co-host Peter Angel, whose voice you just heard welcoming you to the podcast, my close friend and business partner of almost 30 years, passed away in late March of this year. We recorded 9 episodes 0 to 8, which have all been edited, uploaded and released for you to enjoy. After some thought, I decided to continue the podcast in Peter's memory, as he loved it so much and it was really an enjoyable project for us to work on together, and I hope to make him proud. I decided to keep the podcast intro as is, at least for this season, and reassess at a later stage. All new episodes will include special guest co-hosts. I hope most of you will go back and listen to all the episodes with Peter co-hosting and get to know him a little more. I also hope you continue to support the podcast into the future and help us do this for Peter. The podcast started as a passion project involving 2 friends with a common interest and a desire to share that with the general public, which I hope to continue in that same direction. It won't be easy without Peter, as he was such an important part of this whole idea, but it will continue with him in mind and spirit and be just another way to keep his memory alive. Thanks for listening, and now, on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Best and Worst podcast. Again, I am your host, Itai Guberman, and I am here today with kind of a regular guest co-host, I guess, Asaf Angel. Hi, Asaf.
Hi, everyone.
Today, we are going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan. Pretty sure that most of you would be fairly... at least aware of Shyamalan's work if you haven't seen it all. He's had some pretty big hits, some very, very interesting films. And yeah, we will go into it soon and get into more detail. Asaf, what's your general take on Shyamalan?
I think Shyamalan has genius in him, although he makes many mistakes. And I think it's not that I think, it's a known fact. He has some ego on him. And when he doesn't, or when he works through it, he can make some really, really good films.
Yeah, I guess I agree with that. As far as ego goes, I think he is, he may have been at different stages in his career. I think his ego would have sort of changed volume. I think most artists need to have some ego, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, he does have some genius in him, but I think for the most part, the genius is in the ideas, the concepts that he comes up with that are very, very interesting. They're not always well executed, though.
Yes, that's right.
It varies. He has some
Yes.
very, very good films and some not so good ones.
Where he stands now in his maturity and as a filmmaker, I think that it would better him to make low-budget films, relatively low to what he's used to making, and that would make, I feel that would make for better films from him.
Yeah, it's something you and I have discussed in the past, especially I think when it comes to originality. When you have original filmmakers, I think they are always better off staying within let's call it decent but also reasonable budgets. When the budgets get inflated and get into the very, very high tens of millions or 100 million plus, that can sometimes really hurt a filmmaker's creativity. It just seems to be the case that they get less creative. Their films are maybe a bit more shiny, maybe better production value, but as a film, they tend to not be as good as some of the original work where, they had to come up with interesting solutions to all kinds of obstacles and have made, some pretty excellent films. And I think Shyamalan is in that group. He's gone up and down in his budgets. I think at one point he was sort of a Hollywood golden boy, and then he, sort of fell out of favor with Hollywood, and then he kind of worked his way back in there. And today he's probably, somewhere in the middle. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. As we do with every episode, I will firstly go through the IMDb ranking of Shyamalan's films, basically by IMDb users. So it's more of a sort of a general public opinion kind of thing about his films. Then I will go and look into all 14 of his films, and we'll discuss return over budget, basically. So it's the box office returns over budget, very simplified sort of way of giving us some idea as to whether those films were a success or otherwise. And after that, of course, Asaf and I will both go into our rankings of Shyamalan's films, which I'm sure is going to be an interesting discussion. I foresee that we will probably not be agreeing on a lot, but maybe on some. I think he's that kind of filmmaker. It's could be a bit polarizing. Okay, but I will start with the IMDb ratings, or rankings, I should say, or both. At number 14, ranking as the lowest, least popular, I guess, film of Shyamalan's list on IMDb is The Last Airbender from 2010.
No,
with an average of 4.0. I have to say, I don't think I rated my films, my list. I don't think I rated his film so low on my list as far as out of 10. I don't think anything didn't get to a 5 at least. But actually, maybe. But it's an interesting one, and we'll talk about it a lot more later on. At number 13, we have his debut, his very first film from 1992, Praying with Anger, which was a very sort of low budget feature, but kind of almost an epic drama. That one averaged 4.5 out of 10. At number 12, we have After Earth from 2013. Bit of a surprise, I'd say. After Earth ended up with an average of 4.8. At number 11 is The Happening from 2008 with an average 5.0. At number 10 is Lady in the Water from 2006 with 5.5. At number 9 is his last released film from this year, from 2021, Old, at 5.8. At number 8, his second feature film, the one he made in 1998, called Wide Awake. That one averaged 5.9. Now we're into the top 7. At 7, we have The Visit from 2015 at 6.2. At number 6, The Village from 2004 at 6.5. At number 5, we have Glass from 2019 with 6.6. And from there, there's a big jump in the out of 10 average. At number 4, we actually have a tie between two films that are at number 3, I guess, and that is Split from 2016 at 7.3. So a bit of a jump from 6.6 to 7.3, from Glass to Split. And tied with Split at number 3 is Unbreakable from 2000 at 7.3 as well. Number 2 on the list is Signs from 2002 with an average of 7.7, and number 1 at 8.1 is The Sixth Sense. So an interesting list, I'd say. I probably wouldn't have gone exactly in the way that people have there, but interesting nonetheless. As far as box office over budget success, I guess, of the films. The number 14, I guess, film on the list is not exactly the number 14 on the list. It's just one we couldn't get figures on because it never went into wide release, and that's his debut film, Praying with Anger. It was made on a $750,000 budget, which is fairly high for for a debut, but still kind of a low budget feature. An interesting film, but we have no numbers as far as any kind of takings. So it wasn't released cinematically. So I'm guessing any type of return that may have come through some sort of a physical release, or later maybe even with streaming, because it's a bit of a curiosity, for people who are Shyamalan's fans or otherwise, to go in and see sort of where he started. An interesting one. Following at number 13, one that I actually did have figures on, and the figures were terrible, is his second film from 1998, Wide Awake. It had a very, very decent budget at $6 million for a second film. It also had a pretty decent cast, which I thought was a bit of a surprise. Dana Delaney, Dennis Leary, Rosie O'Donnell, Robert Loggia, Cameron Manheim, Julia Stiles, Dan Lauria. Very, very, very interesting that he managed to get all these people in, I guess, on a $6 million budget for one, but also that he just, I guess, people wanted to be in his film as a bit of an up and comer. The thing with this movie was it was released cinematically, but probably a very limited release because it only brought in $282,000 at the box office, which makes it, nowhere near the budget. It's a 0.05% return. So this film it's fairly safe to say it failed. Again, it may have brought in something on some kind of a physical release and on some kind of a streaming rental type, who knows, because we're talking 1998. So streaming would have only come in recently. And again, as a bit of a curiosity, it may have brought in a little bit of money. But I would say, this one did not return its budget, probably not even close. So outside the first two films, we are looking at sort of Shyamalan's more, let's say, famous, familiar, popular, or otherwise films, but they've all had some fairly decent cinematic releases. And at number 12 is Lady in the Water from 2006. $70 million budget and $73 million return at the box office for a 1.04 times the budget return. Safe to say it failed. It lost money. This film, it's also pretty clear, would have brought in some money on rentals, physical release and all of that, TV rights or whatever. But they also would have spent a lot more on the marketing of this one. It's safe to say it didn't make money. It lost.
Budget feels a bit too inflated for the type of film that it is.
I think I would have preferred to see this one at the 50 million and under. It has a bit of After Effect work that would necessitate a bit of a budget plus a fairly large cast. But having said that, I think that one of the shortcomings of this film is actually the After Effects. There are creatures in it that are supposed to look real, and they just don't. And certain scenes just look terrible. But overall, I don't think it's a bad film. But yeah, it's definitely interesting one.
It might have been because of the After Effects requirements, among others, but I read somewhere that at the point where he signed on to make Lady in the Water, he had a falling out with Disney, and Warner Bros. Jumped at the goose that laid the golden eggs. They gave him the money for Lady in the Water. So I think maybe that has something to do with it, but I can't be sure.
I don't know, but there were no golden eggs on this one.
They did know that beforehand.
Yeah, of course. And it was kind of the start of, I think, of things being a bit dicey for Shyamalan in the way of getting budgets with ease, which is something that he did sort of from a certain point and up to this point. So yeah, but at number 11, we have After Earth from 2013. This is an interesting one. The budget was $130 million. It brought back $244 million. So almost twice the budget. It's times 1.9 the budget. It's a decent return as far as box office, but due to the huge size of the budget itself, it probably didn't make a profit. Number 10 is everybody's favorite, The Last Airbender from 2010. Also probably, I would say, the highest budget budget for any film by Shyamalan. $150 million. Did bring in at the box office $320 million. So 2.13 times the budget, which again probably means that it lost money all up, because the marketing and promotion campaign, same with After Earth, would have been huge. It would have probably brought some in physical media and all kinds of rights sales, and streaming and TV and cable, but still, it's those two films may have somehow reached break-even point, but I would doubt it, because they weren't really popular with the fans. But yeah, those two are, I think, the only two films that he made for over $100 million budget. At number 9, we have Unbreakable from 2000. The film was made for a $75 million budget, and it brought in $248 million at the box office for 3.3 times the budget. Yeah, also, I think one that the budget is probably higher than it should be at 75 mil. What do you think?
I kind of agree with that, but it has what Lady in the Water in comparison doesn't have. It has multiple locations and I think more intricate sequences. Not that many, but it has a lot more intricate sequences with many people in the background and multiple locations.
Yeah, but still, I would hazard a guess and say, even at say 50 million, I would have thought that's maybe okay. Not too bad, but 75 I think is a bit much. And this is a film I really like. I guess at the time, they had the money to throw around, and they definitely did that.
Yeah, they had no excuse not to give him that money. It was right after his big success.
Yeah. After The Sixth Sense. But let's just sort of plow ahead and see. But The Happening is next at number 8. That was from 2008. A budget of 48 million, and it returned just over $163 million. So about 3.4 times the budget. I should have said before, from Unbreakable onwards, these films have at least broken even. I think made some kind of a profit. 3.3 times the budget, and The Happening is 3.4 times the budget. So yeah, I'd say those probably, at least broken even, but probably brought in a small profit. At number 7, we have The Village from 2004, $60 million budget and $257 million box office return for a 4.3 times the budget. That one definitely made a profit. The profit would have looked a lot more impressive if it would have been made for what I think it should have been made for, which is probably more around half that, maybe at about 30 million. This film was well contained, all in I wouldn't say exactly one location, but all shot, pretty much all of it in some sort of a village, hence the title. Yeah, an interesting one. But again, it was following all those sort of his more successful time, I think, with Hollywood, which is why the budgets are still very decent. At number 6, we're talking finally like a more modest budget, is Old, his most recent film from 2021, from this year. $18 million budget. It brought back 90 million so far, because it's still probably going in, especially in streaming and that kind. So 90 million over 18 million budget, 5 times the budget, definitely made a profit. Any thoughts on this one?
Having seen the film, 18 million also feels a bit inflated, but not wildly.
Yeah, I would hazard a guess and say that most of, or a substantial amount of this budget was to bring everyone to that location. They shot on this sort of resort and then on this kind of a secluded beach. So they would have had some, crowd control to deal with, plus a fairly decent cast as far as numbers. It's a bit of a spoiler, I guess, for anyone who hasn't seen it. So, if that's a problem, maybe tune out for a little bit. But you have multiple actors playing the same characters for some of them. So there's a lot of certainly a big cast here. And at 18 million, you may say, okay, how low would you have gone for this one? Maybe 15, 12 million would have been a stretch, I think, by those kinds of standards. So yeah, it's decent. But again, at 18 million, at least it gave it room to bring back 90 million and have a very profitable film. That's not a bad way to do things. At number 5, we have Signs from 2002, a $72 million budget, and it brought back a pretty decent $408 million. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, that was a big hit, I remember at the time. It's the highest budget, I think, in the top 5. At number
Okay.
4, we have Glass from 2019, which was made for, I would have to say, only 20 million, because it looks like a film that was made for more. It brought back $247 million at the box office for 12.35 times the budget.
Yeah.
So over 12 times the budget. That's definitely a fairly decent profit, I would say.
And he funded it himself. Is that true?
That's the story. He basically got into a situation where he wanted to make this film, which is in a way brings this sort of universe together from Unbreakable and Split. And I think he pitched it, I guess, to studios and basically did not get the kind of budget that he wanted for this, which I assume was higher than 20 million. But he then sort of decided, you know what, I'll put my money where my mouth is, and got $20 million of his own, mostly his own money, I guess, together, and shot the film. And then when he brought it back to studios, again, I think this is also Blumhouse, he probably got a bit more money to get it out there to a wide release. So I would have to say that the promotion and marketing budget for this film was higher than the actual budget to shoot it. But yeah, it's an interesting film and an interesting story. I think he mortgaged a property of his or whatever to get the money to make this happen, Shyamalan. And I have to say, I have some respect for him for doing this, because if you want other people to back you, sometimes you got to back yourself. And since he fell out with the studios in some way previous to Glass, which in some ways also surprising, because Split was quite a success. But yeah, I guess for whatever reason, they didn't really want to make this film, and he had to prove them wrong, and he did. So yeah, very interesting. But at number 3, we go way back from 1999, The Sixth Sense, a $40 million budget, and he brought back a whopping $673 million at the box office for 17 times the budget. This is an interesting one because $40 million is a lot for having made that film at that stage of his career. For the film itself, I would have to say, it probably could have been made for less, but, we're splitting hairs at 40 million at that time. But I think that it's the highest box office of any of his films by far, actually. Yeah, no other film has reached 500 million. This one went 673. So that's a fair discrepancy. But again, as far as in comparison to the budget, it's only number 3 on the list. And a very good example of why that is number 2, which is The Visit from 2015, a film that was made for $5 million. It brought in 98.5 million at the box office for just under 20 times the budget, 19.7. Quite a profitable little deal that one was. And this was, to me, sort of his not exactly comeback, but comeback from failures, I think. It was after the fall of After Earth and before it, to The Last Airbender. So yeah, this was really good to see him make an indie horror film. And that's the look of it and everything else. A lot of it was, it wasn't exactly found footage style, but it incorporated that style of shooting into the film. Very good film. I was very happy to see it succeed at the time, because it was nice to see Shyamalan go back to his roots in a way, which is exactly what we talked about before, where, you have a low budget, or a fairly low budget, in this case, $5 million, and you end up making something that is way better than, your previous $100+ million budget films.
Yeah, it forces you to be creative.
Absolutely. At number 1 for his best box office return on budget is Split from 2016. $9 million budget, 278.5 million return at the box office for almost 31 times the budget. So by far, I'd say the most, by percentage, profitable film.
Yeah.
So that sort of rounds it up. Number 1 on IMDb is The Sixth Sense by a fair discrepancy from, fair difference from the next one. And for box office over budget, it's a Split, which is a bit of a surprise. I didn't see that coming. Interesting, very interesting. But now we go into our lists. So our top 14. I would just want to mention first that on my list, my number 14 is not really my number 14, because it's a film that I just haven't seen in full as yet. I started watching it. I just didn't finish it in time for the podcast. It's not really kind of my style of film, but I still think it would probably not end up last on my list once I finish watching it. And that's Wide Awake from 98. I have not seen that one as yet, but you have. So it will be included in your top 14. Mine are going to be 13. So go ahead and get started. What's your number 14?
My number 14, I know it's going to be a shocker, but my number 14 is The Last Airbender.
Yeah, seems to be a popular choice for his worst. So I will say that it is not my worst film. What's your number 13? Since I'm doing only 13, we'll go from there.
My number 13 is The Happening.
Oh, wow. Okay. My number 13 is Praying with Anger, his first film from 98. It was a tough one, putting it there because it's sort of an interesting kind of story, sort of an epic drama. But I think what caused me to put it there is that he made it for $750,000. And it's a very clumsy film, which you can sort of expect from a first-time filmmaker. But, I could see some promise in some parts of it, but in others, it was just not, quite terribly written, and they should have never spent that much money on it. But they did, and I guess in a lot of ways it paid off, so I can't argue it.
We don't know what the money
I think it's
spent on in this film.
Yeah, but I think the budget came from like friends and family.
Could have
this
been,
wasn't a
but
studio film.
The reason why it's ranked higher in my list is because I know the budget was very impressive. First of all, the size of the budget is impressive for any beginning filmmaker to get for his debut film. The reason why it's ranked higher in my list is because Shyamalan was 22 when he made it. Number one reason. Number two, he's in it. He stars in it. So that's added pressure. And I had a third reason. It was made in 1992.
Yeah, but don't forget,
it was.
He didn't have to star in it.
I know, but
this is
he
I know, but this is also kind of a mistake because it's a first-time filmmaker casting himself in a film that he feels tells a personal story. The acting in it is not good. I wouldn't actually say it's not mostly by him. Actually, he's kind of okay, but again, it's so badly written that it doesn't matter. But it's an okay first film, but it should have been made for maybe 250,000 and not 750,000.
Can I agree? But
it was funny. It was funny for me to see that Shyamalan, even when he had below $1 million to make a movie, he was still over budgeting his films in a way. You know?
Okay, but it was made in 1992, and back then for a 22-year-old. It's a challenge, even if he's got some money to spend. It's a challenge to helm such a project. And
absolutely,
it was filmed impressive. In India, I think.
Yeah,
it was filmed in India, right? Yeah.
I think so. But again, it's there's a lot impressive in it, and there's a lot not so much. But again, you can't really pick it apart because it is a first-time film kind of thing. But I think I put it last on my list because of after watching the film, I ranked it out of 10, and it's by far the lowest out of 10 out of the films that I've seen. As far as your other two films mentioned here, The Last Airbender is my number 12, and The Happening is my number 11.
At least they're back to back.
Look, with Last Airbender, and we've talked about it before, and it was very much a departure from his type of material. He made a film here that was more like, I guess a lot of films that were made around that time that sort of had that sort of a fantasy. Yeah. I'm thinking of films like The Golden Compass and, even in some ways like Harry Potter and that kind of style. So they're very epic, very big budget. And in this one, just the payoff wasn't there. You watch the film, and it's like, meh. And I think he thought that he was making a, franchise kind of film, but it never came to that.
No, it never came to that. The performances felt to be sort of two-dimensional, and he went into very much explaining everything the film is trying to talk about. The dialogues are strange. You can feel how he directs the dialogue to be aimed at 12-year-olds. You can see it in the film.
Which is why these films tend to be over-explained, because they are for
and I think
for a younger audience. But the problem here, I thought, that with over-explaining things was also the repetitive nature. You had the character that was being chased, and he was caught and he escaped, and he was caught and he escaped, and he was caught and he escaped, and it was just a bit too much repetition for me.
Yes, it was.
As far as the performances, I don't know if I agree with you. I don't think the performances are an issue, but I think they're you're right on the money with with dialogue and just the writing in general. So it didn't really leave the actors much to work with. So some of it is kind of, I wouldn't say it's not believable, because you kind of go in with a suspension of disbelief that is in accordance with what the film is about, the style and everything. So I still sort of gave it about a 5 point something out of 10. But Yeah, it just didn't really leave an impression. It's a film that I watched once and forgot about, and then I rewatched it again, and I'm now trying to forget because it's not my kind of thing, and it doesn't deserve to necessarily be remembered.
It was a painful experience for me as well to watch it. I watched it in increments. That's how painful it was.
But the Happening is a more of a film that I'm a bit split on. Yeah, split. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no pun.
I think that the premise is brilliant. I think it's not necessarily hugely original. I'm sure other people have delved into that area before, but it's very interesting, and I think he could have made for a fantastic film. But it is just, again, it brought me back to his first film, where it is just so clumsy. The lines that come out of people's mouths are just like, who wrote this? We know who wrote this.
He did.
But the acting is well, I'll just come out straight out and say it. The acting is terrible by the two leads, especially, and they're both actors that I like. I like Mark Wahlberg. I like Zooey Deschanel. They're terrible in this, but I think that's the material they were given, and that's the way they were directed. I mean, they are clearly better actors than this because they've made films that they've performed far better than this. And so, yeah, it's a one that could have been, but just didn't. And when I watched it the first time, I think. Soon after it came out, I liked it a bit more. And then now that I watched it again, I definitely like it a lot less. It dropped down my list a lot. So, yeah.
The film feels like he didn't know where he wanted to take it. That's how it feels. And talking about the acting and the way it went, I saw a snippet. If you remember the scene where they tried to get into this house, where it's spoiler alert, where the owner of the house shoots the two kids. That were with him. So in that scene, before they shot, you can hear Mark Wahlberg ask Shyamalan, why would these people have food in their house? Why are we here? It's like he's annoyed with the scene. That's how it felt. I'm not saying that was what really went on. And Shyamalan, he answers Mark. He says 2 words: canned goods. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't get fazed because his star is questioning the script. It encapsulates it encapsulates what Mark Wahlberg thought about the script, even though he did exactly what he was told.
And that's the thing. The character looks confused about what's happening in the film, but to me, it's more like Mark Wahlberg was confused about what the hell this film was doing. What the dialogue, what the text was trying to say, and some of it is just like, it's mind-boggling. That's the particular scene you're talking about. It's just a terrible scene, and I don't mean in the outcome that again, spoiler alert, that those 2 kids were shot, but. Jesus, it just made no sense. The way it unfolded, the things they were saying, the things that the kids were doing were not logical.
And introducing them to the story and killing them, like 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, it was.
Yeah, but
I didn't understand it.
But it has a fantastic opening, this film, and it draws you in, and you're curious and you want to know more. And then as the story unfolds, and the terrible acting and terrible lines of text that come out of people's mouths, you just you just lose faith in the film, even though you want it to be better because it is interesting, but it just never gets there. So yeah, this one was, I think, a missed opportunity, and I think it all rests really on Shyamalan's shoulders because, I mean, he wrote it and he directed it, and again, he had a decent budget to work with, and he should have reworked this script better, and perhaps even cast the film differently, or at least really rehearse with his actors and make sure that it's done properly.
Yeah.
It just felt.
I think the latter. Yeah, I think the latter because when you see Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel together in The Happening, I didn't buy that these 2 were a couple for a second. Not even for a second.
I didn't mind that, but it looked to me like like some films maybe that like exercise type of short films that we shot at university, where you can tell the actors were not necessarily as prepared as they should be, and they just arrived on set, and and maybe they've had their scripts before, but they had no real rehearsals, and they never got to ask the questions that they should have asked, and all the rest of it. I don't know if that's true to this film, but that's just how it seemed. Both Zooey Deschanel and Mark Wahlberg seemed that way. Like John Leguizamo is in this, and he's a great actor, and he does okay in this, it's not great, but some scenes that should have been a lot more dramatic just were not. It didn't have the effect. Again, spoiler alert, but in the scene where he dies, that scene should have had a lot more impact, but it didn't because they never really built the character enough, and even the way that things unfold, it just was there, I didn't really feel much, which is strange, you really should. Yeah, I don't know. And again, actors make stupid choices in this, and it's not really fully explained, at the end, especially that ending. Yeah.
Sorry, so one more thing about why I talked about Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel. I can see these two in a different setting, in a different film, being a couple. I didn't buy that they were a couple in this film because how it was structured, how it was written, and their performances. It wasn't the casting. That's what I'm saying.
It's not just that, it's that element as well of couples that are having trouble that he uses in quite a few films, and it never hits home, but he keeps doing it. It wasn't well written in this one, and he uses it again, especially almost identically in some ways, as far as the trick that he tries to do here. He does that in Old as well, and it has no real bearing on the story. And it just doesn't really have that effect of a couple that is, having real relationship problems, and it looks like they might be separating. And this story, of the film is sort of what brings them back together. It didn't work in either one of those films, so it's a little bit of a sort of like a film trope, a bit of a trick, but it's just so badly written that it just didn't work. It was so obvious.
Yeah, he tends to write couples in his films that are too far gone in their relationship. In fact, that they are on the brink of separation, while he could just as easily written them having problems. A couple who has problems.
Yeah, he does that in Unbreakable and in The Sixth Sense. Yeah. I agree. You're number 12.
My 12 is a Split.
Oh wow. Okay, didn't expect to see it that low. Let's hear why.
Split felt to me that he does it a lot in his films. He hangs the entire story on the gimmick, on its premise. And what I particularly disliked about the film is it's not Jimmy McAvoy's performance, it's the weight that his characters had in the film. Plus we talked about this before, the film language that Shyamalan uses. It's like he's deliberately misleading the viewer. His close-ups on, I forget her name, the female protagonist, I forget her name.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy. It makes me feel, because you know Shyamalan, you know his style. It makes me feel like the close-ups that he does on her, she's supposed to know something that nobody else knows. You sort of build where he might take the film, because he's the twist master, and then it just ends underwhelming. That's why it didn't work well.
Yeah, okay. I don't fully disagree with that about the part about the close-ups and whatever. I think there's something there, but yeah, I don't know. It's higher on my list. Let's just say that you and I are split on Split, because I think that it's one of his better films. It's in my top half. We'll get to it when we'll get to it. The thing that was interesting that you and I discussed before was James McAvoy, being cast in this role. He wasn't the original choice for this. It was actually supposed to be Joaquin Phoenix.
Really?
Yeah. And that would have been very interesting. You know what I mean? I would have liked to have seen that. No slight on McAvoy's acting skills.
Of course not.
I think
it's a tough role.
He's a very good actor. I think the way he was directed in this, I guess what was requested, like a lot of people have talked about this film and said, how brilliant he is in it. I think he's good in it. I don't think he's brilliant. I think he is basically characters and doing voices, and it just never quite hit me in the way that I'm looking at a person with multiple split personalities.
I didn't believe that he had that kind of mental illness. I didn't believe his mental illness. I saw a very skilled actor doing characters, but I didn't believe for a second that this man was mentally ill.
Yeah. And I it's hard to say, because we'll never be able to kind of prove that, but I would almost guess that Joaquin Phoenix would have been a better fit for this role in some ways.
We'll never know.
Just because of his style of acting, I think his physicality maybe not, but they would have had to really work him into shape for this. Yeah, I don't know. It's I think it's a pretty good film. I think it could have been better, and it is, as Shyamalan's films tend to be. You talk about that it's sort of relying on the shtick, but that's kind of fine if it works. And I thought in this it kind of worked. Yeah, I don't know. I do like it. I know that the mental health community has it's been very poorly received, by people somehow related to dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah, that's the term I was looking for. I kind of lost it.
Yeah, DID, and
Yeah.
they disputed a lot of what's going on in the film. But again, the film is not supposed to be real. A lot of what was said was that a lot of people with DID are less than 1% show any violence. They're rarely violent. But again, his characters were not violent either.
No, they weren't.
Spoiler alert, it was just really one character that they were preparing for, and which is why another character inside him sort of escalated.
Yeah, that didn't bother me, the violence part.
And
It
again,
didn't.
like I said, it's a film. It's not supposed to be exactly true to how this disorder
Yeah.
works and all the rest of it. But I thought in that part it did well, and I thought this film is one of the Shyamalan films that is actually very well written. The dialogue and a lot of the scenes like between characters, it worked for me. I didn't really mind it at all in that way. But we'll move on. We'll probably talk about it a little more when we get to it on my list.
My 11 is After Earth.
After Earth, yeah, not so far from mine. Mine is number 9.
It was too much for me. I haven't seen it recently. I've seen it once or twice a few years ago. To sum it up in a word, it felt kind of boring.
Yeah, I guess
And,
that could be more of a sort of a taste thing. If that's your taste in films, that's fine. I think technically it's sound.
yes, it is.
And it's a departure from his other films in the way that the sort of creature involved in this one actually looked pretty good. So in the way of After Effects, this film is a bit more fitting, with its budget, which is pretty massive. What was it, 130 million? I think it's an okay film. You know what I mean? It's not bad. It's not one that I would rush to sort of view again. I saw it twice now, and that's probably more than enough. I watched it again for the purposes of this podcast, just to sort of remind me of anything, because I didn't really remember specifics. I remembered it sort of more in general terms, because it's not really that memorable. Will Smith is great.
Yes.
Jaden is good. There's not a lot of actors around them. It's really more the two of them for the most part. It's an above average film, no doubt. I think it ranked not so high on my list either, as I said, but it's a good sort of 6 out of 10 for me, which is above average. Which it's still 9th on my list out of a list of 13 films. So it's not high, but it's still a 6. I enjoyed it for the most part. I liked Zoe Kravitz as the daughter, and I thought they should have shown her more. So it's not just those two, pretty much, the whole film. But also Sophie Okonedo playing the mother, or Will Smith's wife. She's very good. And I thought they needed a bit more presence in the film, and potentially they could have given a bit more story to other soldiers who were on that sort of flight with them. It would have made the film a bit more interesting, and also it would have made us feel the impact of the crash a bit more. Because they crash on a planet, but as far as we're concerned, they're the only two on the ship anyway, because we don't really know the other characters. So anybody else who dies, you're not going to feel that loss. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, not too
that
much
was,
emphasis on.
yeah, to me, that's a drawback, because they could have cut down on the rest of the story a little bit and given us a bit more there. But yeah, it's I mean, on IMDb, they gave it like 4.8 out of 10. And I think that's a bit wrong, because it's really not that bad of a film. It's not that good of a film either. It's just somewhere, above average. Yeah, but to me, it's an interesting one. I read somewhere that the worldwide marketing budget for it was about 100 million, in addition to the 130 million spent on the production. But that's usually the case. Sometimes, marketing campaigns for big budget films are even larger than the actual budget. Sometimes 3 times the budget. So it depends. That's why they say, as a general rule, if you want to know that a film, or have some idea that a film has at least broken even, it needs to make 3 times the budget. But there's lots of exceptions to that rule. Like I said, it brought back a decent amount in box office returns. It's just that when you put all that together, 100 million plus 130 million, 230 million spent, and it brought back 244 million. What's your number 10?
Okay. My number 10 is Wide Awake.
Okay, maybe you can tell us a bit more about it, because I only saw a little bit of this movie.
Because it was Shyamalan's second feature film, he gets points for being able to raise $6 million. So that's the first part.
Second one,
the
cast
it's
involved.
And the cost involved, of course. The second part is the story feels whole and it's wholesome, and it's a family movie. You can say it's a family movie, and the story itself, it has a very very clear direction. It just felt for a 27-year-old young director to make a film like that with that cast and that story and that kind of writing back in the late 90s. That was an impressive achievement, even though it wasn't anything innovative. The story wasn't some groundbreaking gimmick as he usually does, but I liked it. I liked it for what it was.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, both this one and Praying with Anger, his first two feature films, are before he became M. Night Shyamalan, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
What everybody sort of recognizes him for today is being that sort of director with a twist. And I don't necessarily mean a twist at the end of the movies, but just a twist in his way of thinking. His films tend to be out there, some interesting ideas and all the rest of it. And this was sort of before that time. So it's more your sort of regular film, like you say, it's a family film. It has to kind of make sense, and the way you see, the word used, whole, as in it stands on its own. Everything about it is, I guess, fine. It's just a matter of whether you sort of connect with that type of film or that type of story. So let's just say, how would you rate it out of 10?
I wouldn't rate it as high. I don't connect with stories like that, not because they're not good stories, but because they were told a trillion times before. It's a coming of age story. It's through the eyes of a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, but it does have something interesting to it, that it's a 12-year-old kid who's dealing with loss.
Yeah, so that's exactly the premise. It's been told many times before, and it feels like something. When I first saw it, I didn't quite remember the opening credits, but I don't know if Miramax worked with Disney. It felt like a Disney movie, and it's fine, but it's not my taste, but it's fine. I ranked it as high relative to the ones that ranked below it because the circumstances that brought it to life. Shyamalan was still a young director. He managed to raise $6 million. The cast was impressive, and the story was sound.
It also has something to do with the films below it that disappointed you in some way. So this one didn't. It was what it was meant to be.
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
It's not my cup of tea, but it didn't disappoint.
All right. Well, that was your number 10.
Yes.
And my number 10 is Old from 2021.
I don't think we're that far.
As I said before, I put After Earth above it at number 9 because I thought it was more whole, if we're talking about that. After Earth sort of worked within the story and everything that it was meant to deliver. All of it was there. With Old, I saw many, many faults, and a lot of it felt weak. I don't think it's a coincidence that I placed The Happening at 11 and Old at 10, because those are the two films with, I think, noticeably worse acting than all this other stuff.
The thing that I like most about the film is the premise.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, with The Happening, I love the premise. It's very interesting. This one, again, interesting, and I felt like it didn't quite pull it through in the end. The ending was a bit weak. No. It didn't really keep up the tension all the way through in the same way that he does with other films, because he's very good at building tension. Spoiler alert, anyone who hasn't seen Old, we're going to talk about some things that, that reveal things that you shouldn't hear about before watching the film. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in the film, people come to this island, which makes them age rapidly. And he finishes the act on the island. Everybody dies on the island, and then he moves on to the explaining part of the film, what's happening and why it is happening that way. That was a weak ending up to the point that it felt redundant. I would have been fine not knowing that they're experimenting with drugs or whatever. They were putting people there to see how life-saving drugs work on them, and they needed to examine how they work in a very short period of time so they can market this type of medication to people in the world. I would have been fine without it. I would have been fine with everybody dying on the island, and that's it.
It's almost mansplaining, because you see throughout the film that somebody is watching them, potentially, recording them or whatever. We didn't have to see who it was and why. It would have been enough to leave that as a mystery. But he felt the need to take it there, and that whole part, because it sort of comes after the end in a way. It's like a second ending, and then there's sort of almost a third. It felt weak because again, he had to make them into bad guys who are disguising what they're doing as trying to do something good. Like the guy in charge seemed especially fake as far as in his concern for the people on the island and all the rest of it, and he didn't have to be.
No, he didn't.
He could have been dead honest and looked like he believes in what he's doing, but this one didn't seem like it. You know what I mean? The way that he was portrayed, it could have been just about the money, which kind of makes him evil. Everything still made him evil anyway, as far as the actions and what they're doing, but it also showed us that there's a lot of people involved in this, which makes it almost impossible to believe that it worked and that it never came out.
That actually made me kind of annoyed, because the whole idea above this premise that they're taking people who you would not notice if they were gone, people, regular people.
Yeah,
yet
I didn't quite.
So you would make it easier for them to disappear. Yet on the island, he has a rapper who's famous enough for the daughter to recognize him in mid-sized sedan. He takes a famous person.
Mid-sized. We should say mid-sized sedan is his rapper name in the film.
Yeah, his rapper name in the film.
But the thing is, again, why are these people who will go unnoticed if they disappear? They have no friends. They have no other family. That was a bit weird.
I was able to swallow that premise up to that point, but when he progressed to putting famous people, the character was famous. Him being a famous rapper had nothing to do with the story. He could have easily been just another guy there.
Yeah, and it's not just that. They also take people who have some sort of an illness because they want to see how their bodies respond to like rapid aging, as far as we will see how the disease progresses in them faster, and we'll know what medicine works and what doesn't. That's the story anyway. If they did that and they had any kind of sort of compassion, something, they would not have brought on families, as in couples with kids, healthy kids. If the parents have a sickness, make it a no kids allowed resort, and make it attractive for those people to come over. Yes, the kids
keep the kids behind.
Well, but then it would be revealed.
I have to kill them too.
So just make it so that only parents come to the thing. The kids stay at home. I mean, somebody is bound to notice that these people have died. Missing.
That's what was most annoying. I think that was most annoying about the story, because that was the 73rd experiment in the film.
Yeah.
So they made 300 people disappear and nobody noticed.
Exactly, and it's like one of the world's most prolific serial killers, really. This place, and it's like a lot of it would have been noticed. There's no way that this would have sort of gone undetected, because people tend to leave details behind as to where they went.
So
it's also on their passports. I mean, I believe that in some way, I can't remember exactly, but I think there was something in the beginning of the story where they didn't actually go overseas. They were still in the US. Is that right?
I don't remember.
They said something about it, like this is a good sort of, you didn't have to go to Cancun to get this.
Yeah, but even so, there's no place.
But what I mean is, for that you don't need to use your passport. So I sort of kind of went back on what I said before. That's all. Maybe. And if you do need to use the passport, then again, it's stamped on the passport. People would know where they went. There's no way that this would not have come back on the resort. When the previous people disappeared, because anybody who leaves home leaves details with their families. People know where they went. In case something goes wrong, they'll know where to look for them. If somebody would have turned up at this resort and said, where's my whoever? Somebody would have used a private detective or the police or someone to go and investigate. And it just doesn't happen here. And it's a little bit too, simplistic in the way it tells the story, which is, again, kind of fine. But if they would have given us something a bit better, and I think if the acting would have been up to par in this, I would have been able to enjoy it a bit more. Because, again, it's an interesting premise. It just didn't quite not all the pieces were there. So
feels he forced the circumstances to fit his narrative.
Yeah, exactly. I have a cool premise. Let's do this, and not sit there and let's work the script until it's perfect. I would say Old was made for the paycheck, because there's no other way that I can see why. I mean, well, maybe he just fell in love with his own material and thought that this script was complete and was great. But again, if he is such an artist, and I mean, the man has a lot of experience, as a writer director, he should have known that this script was below par.
I was thinking the same thing.
But he fell in love with the concept and with the words that he put down on paper, and he thought, yeah, you know what, this works, this is going to be great, this is going to be good. And sometimes I think he maybe also tell himself that because of pressure by whomever put up the money to make the film. He gets paid and he has to deliver, and on time. So again, it's just a very, very small window these days to making a film. It's a lot shorter than what it used to be, and it's also to cut budgets, and it's also to get it out there, because we need content. Yeah. And that's what happens.
I didn't mention it before, but I should say that Old is ranked number 8 in my list, not so far from you.
Yeah, which is reasonable. There's some stuff to enjoy in this film, but again, as a product, a whole product, I think it's above average film. It's below par for Shyamalan, and I think for me it didn't quite deliver. I would still put it at somewhere 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, whatever out of 10, because again, it's such a good concept and there is capable filmmaking somewhere in there. But overall, yeah. So what's your number 9?
My number 9 is Praying with Anger.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Wow, that is high.
And it's high because of reasons I specified before. He did it when he was 22. Very good for him for being able to raise that money that he did. He did it in 1992 in a foreign country. To him, well, actually, maybe not to him. I don't know what his background. He is Indian. He's American, but he has Indian heritage. I don't know. It has nothing to do with how hard it was to produce it. But he did shoot it in India, and he was still wet behind the ears.
I would have to assume that it's sort of an autobiographical type of story.
Could be.
About a young Indian American returning to India to explore his background, really. In the story there, he was forced to, which might be the case, with him as well. It would have come from maybe not him personally, but some stuff that he would have seen around him.
Yeah.
And going back to India to visit or to see, your roots and visit family and all the rest of it would have been a great excuse to shoot a film there. So
yeah,
I think that may have sort of combined those sort of aspects.
Yeah, and for what it was worth, the cinematography was even fairly decent.
For the most part.
With that kind of budget, that you could expect cinematography to be this decent, but it was decent and it was surprising for a 22-year-old.
It was. There's like I said, you could see sort of aspects of capability in Shyamalan with this film, but overall, I do think it's very clumsy. In the acting and in the text, the dialogues are very clunky. Some of it is a bit sort of melodramatic, a bit overacted and overdone. So it's screened at 1993 AFI Fest, and it won first film competition. So I guess that's like first film for American independent filmmakers. There's no, I didn't see any mention of any other awards, although, it's possible that it's done well. It was released at the Toronto Film Festival in 92. So it did okay on the festival circuit. And I think that's what got him his next film. It just took time. It sort of doesn't work that way anymore, I guess, these days, but it still can. But yeah.
I'm not sure about his next film. I know that he made, he wrote films.
Yeah.
I think he wrote Stuart Little.
Okay. Yeah. So that's something I didn't know, but yeah.
That's what's impressive about Shyamalan. I can't gather where he got the credibility to gain such attention from studios. I guess they thought his ideas were really good.
And in some way he probably got connected with someone at some point that sort of helped him get in there. But Stuart Little was a massive success. For someone to write. I mean, I know it's a child film, a children film, a family film, whatever you want to call it.
Came out in 1999 though.
Yeah, so
it became a success after he got the deals for, Wide Awake and The Sixth Sense.
Yeah, but you don't know when it went into production. He was already in the mix in that sort of world, So with The Sixth Sense, somebody probably just really bought into the idea. They read the script and thought, this is brilliant.
I know that for a fact, that they bought into the idea. They had a bidding war. What I'm saying. The studios had a bidding war.
Exactly. A bidding war always helps. And another film that he wrote that was interesting to mention, and we're not going to include it on our list because he didn't direct it, and we're looking at films he directed, was Devil from 2010, which was a sort of a decent sort of horror supernatural thriller kind of. That was an interesting film. So every now and again I think he takes a script and gives it away, but maybe not so much today. But he has ability, and that's what I'm saying. It just doesn't always come through, and sometimes it just feels like he doesn't put his all into a film. Like Old, I think Old is a little bit sort of half-assed, as I felt with The Happening. Both should have been and could have been better films. My number 8 is Lady in the Water. Really? And again, and I have to say though, from this point on, from 8 until 2 or 3 actually on the list, they're very, very close. There's about 5 or 6 films that I have a very, very tough time, separating as far as ranking them. I ended up going one way. If you ask me again, in 6 months, a film that is now number 8 could go, as high as number 4 or 3 or whatever. You know what I mean? They are close. I like Lady in the Water. What did let it down for me was production value in some spots. Again, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this, but the creatures in it, those, wolves, whatever you want to call them, did not look real, did not look even close to how they should look. And there's especially one scene where they are sitting behind a door and the creature just forces its head through the door. It did not look real. It did not look right. That scene just did not sit well with me at all. I didn't understand why it was there. It didn't work. It looked horrible. I mean, the reason I don't understand why it was done, because it was very, very different from the behavior of that creature in other places where he can't just go through doors. If that wolf creature had that ability, it could have used that in other places if it's so strong that it can go through a door. And he doesn't do it later on, not in that way. Forget that. Let's say that works. It still looked horrible. It did not look right at all. It looked like like a real B grade or below kind of film, where this film isn't, and it doesn't look that way overall. So again, I still like the film. I just think that it should have been better put together. There's also another little pet hate of mine in this one. Paul Giamatti, who is an actor I absolutely love. I think he's, one of the better actors out there these days, and for a long time. The stuttering, it didn't look right. It didn't feel right. It seemed over. It wasn't that necessary to the story. It wasn't that necessary, because if he didn't stutter, it still would have worked. You know what I mean? It was an interesting detail, especially in the conversation he has, again, spoiler alert, the conversation he has with her where he realizes that he's not stuttering. But again, it's not enough to have something like that in a film where it didn't quite feel pulled off. It was, every time it happened, it annoyed me a little bit. I hate it when it happens, especially with an actor I really like. Overall, I thought he was good in it. Again, this actually has an interesting cast. Bryce Dallas Howard, she was great as the Lady in the Water. Story was her name, and Jeffrey Wright and Bob Balaban and Sarita Chiduri and M. Night Shyamalan, as he does appear in pretty much all his films almost. Freddie Rodriguez. So Jared Harris. It had a very more than decent cast. It's good, but I think it should have been better. I like the meta part of this, where it mentions stories and the implications or how they could relate to real life and all of that, which he does again in his other films with comics and stuff like that. It's always an interesting tidbit. But overall, I think it's a well above average film, as all of the films from 8 on up are all films I liked. So
I can say at this point that it's my number 6, Lady in the Water. And what I liked about it is exactly what you said that you like. I think the world that he built around the story, it's kind of, to me, it was captivating. I really enjoyed watching it unfold. Paul Giamatti's stutter didn't bother me as much. I think it was there for a couple of reasons. Number one, what you said, to further strengthen the connection that he has with the story, and to show it gives him a sort of an aura of like he's both a kind man and sort of out of place. This gives him this impediment that makes it harder for him to deal with people, just to show you how he wishes to please everyone, and the stutter gives him that extra something.
It also had something to do with the backstory of the character, but yeah, it's again, I'm not saying that detail was wrong to put it in. I'm just saying it wasn't well done. They could have directed Giamatti to do it a bit differently, but it was just a little bit over, a little bit too. I don't know. I really don't know.
Maybe it was.
It was a mild irritation for me. It wasn't a big deal. I was more concerned with the after effects in this. I thought were not great.
I think he was trying to with those wolf creatures. I think he was trying to build them in a way that would have made it easier to explain why don't other people see them. Is because they look exactly like grass, and he stumbled across a challenge to make a CGI creature who has grass for hair,
which is
and
fine.
That challenge. Yeah, I'm saying that challenge wasn't something that his effects team could handle.
Yeah, but well, that wasn't them with the grass for fur and all the rest of it. That didn't really bother me. It wasn't that. It was just that they didn't look real, even within the story. Because they're supposed to be creatures from another realm or whatever however you want to look at it. And then they had those monkeys as well, right? And the monkey, they didn't look real either, but they looked okay-ish. You know what I mean?
Because they were people in suits. Yeah, they weren't CGI.
Again, they didn't look quite real, but they looked okay enough for me to not notice it as much and not worry about it. But with the sort of wolf animal, it's just like okay. It wasn't just that. In that bit where the head goes through the door, it didn't look like a door. You know what I mean? Like, I get it that if it's CGI, it's not a door. It's not supposed to be a door. It's supposed to look like a real door. I don't remember it clearly. I just remember that it looked, like a terrible drawn on character, that didn't look right. And it bothered me a lot. But like I said, it didn't really hurt the overall way that I see the film all that much, because I still think it's an above average film. It was a bit of a departure, I think, from his MO sort of at the time, from his style, which I think turned a lot of people off. Me personally, I didn't mind it at all.
No, I didn't either. And one thing I didn't understand is Freddie Rodriguez, the guy who only works out one side of his body. Is that the actor?
Yeah.
That element with the whole one side of his body, it has nothing to do with the story. They talk about it once, and that's it.
And the funny thing, I actually remembered it, that it did have something to do with the story, that he does something at the end, but it didn't.
It's not referenced anywhere in the film but that introduction scene.
Yeah. It was just a shtick. It was something they wanted to give to a character, but it's better not to give something like that to a character. You want to give them something more subtle if it's that aspect, unless it really relates to the story, which it didn't here. So it would have been more interesting if they did definitely something else. This is too much of a thing to give a character and not have it have any meaning in the story.
Maybe much of it stayed on the editing room floor. Maybe they did more and they just didn't include it. That could be a possibility.
Well, I guess we don't know, because we watched whatever film they released. So
now we're down to my number 7,
which is
Glass.
Ding, ding, ding. That's the first film that we hit.
Yeah, we can stop recording and go home now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time. Glass. Glass was a film I was definitely excited to see. Like, I waited for it because I really do love, the Bruce Willis character from Unbreakable, and I thought this would be really, really great, that they're bringing that back. And I even was okay with them tying it into the Split story, which, I kind of liked Split. I know you didn't. But to me, as a whole, this film didn't work. I know what he was trying to do. I know where this might be leading. I don't like it.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. As much as I thought I would. When I first heard about it, he was clever in the trailer as well. When you said you were excited to watch this film, when I saw the trailer, I had no idea what it was about. You see Sarah Paulson sitting in a room. She's the only one in frame. She's talking to someone, and then the shot reverses, and then you see Bruce Willis, Sam Jackson, and James McAvoy sitting in front of her, and then you realize in one single shot that all of this is the Shyamalaverse. All of this is Unbreakable
The
and Split
Shyamalamaverse.
put together. This Shyamalamaverse, yeah, and that made me excited. I was just aching to see the film, and it took a long time until it was available.
Well,
And
we
yeah,
knew
it was,
from Split, from that post credit scene, that they're going to tie in Split with Unbreakable. Now, Unbreakable was really, Bruce Willis's character's film. I mean, it's there in the title,
yeah,
Unbreakable.
yeah,
That's who he was. And James McAvoy got Split.
yeah,
That was his film, and I was actually very happy, to see that that Mr. Glass was going to get a film. I knew that it wasn't going to be really just his film, but I like the way that they kind of took that. And I think it was meant to be his film, but it didn't end up being his film. And I think that's one of the
no,
faults in the way the script goes and the way the story goes. It takes you there at the end, but it's almost like you are told at the very end of the film, this was his film, but you don't get to see it all the way through. Like throughout, all the whole film that you watched
no,
up to the end, you didn't think it was his film. You think it's a film within that universe, and it's about the three of them, and maybe more about actually, James McAvoy more than anyone else, I think. And Bruce Willis does get a little bit more there because there's the whole thing with his son and all the rest of it. It was a nice touch actually to bring his son, the same actor. It was
yeah,
Spencer Treat Clark, that he's all grown up and all the rest of it. And it felt to me that was somewhat wrong scripting wise. When you write a story and only to reach the end, and then they tell you, oh, no, don't worry about those two other characters. This was his story. And I'm like, how was it his story? It kind of became about him only after the halfway mark, where you see that he's going to make some effort to escape and all the rest of it. Before that, they just showed him he was catatonic. It wasn't really about him. It was about the other two and additional characters, The other thing that really bothered me about this film was Mr. Glass's mother. The makeup on her looks like she came out of a Tyler Perry film, or one of those, old Eddie Murphy films, I thought she was going to do comedy. Yeah. I thought this was like a Medea's sister, I'm like, what are you doing? Why is the makeup so bad on her? Why couldn't you just tone it down? Because every scene she was in, and it's no knock on the actress, she was great, Charlene Woodard, but it just took me out of it every time because she looked wrong.
She stood out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, and the problem with that is, again, it's a high budget film. They should have done better. McAvoy, Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson all did well enough in this film. And again, spoiler alert, the way the film ended to me was like saying, those two other films you watched before, Unbreakable and Split? Yeah, forget about those two. Yeah. They don't count anymore. Now we'll just kill him by drowning him in a puddle.
I hated the ending.
I'm talking completely. I get it that it's his kryptonite and all, but in one film they show us this guy can't be killed by bullets. In this one, what kills him is a bullet. Oh yeah, but he wasn't as the Beast. He was as another character. I'm like, fuck off. Seriously, it's not enough. It's like they could have found a million other ways to let those characters go out. I mean, I understand it with McAvoy's character. I understand that because they wanted to kind of redeem him a little bit and to show why Anya Taylor-Joy's character, Casey, why she found a connection with him and actually liked him, because she liked one of the personalities within that body, really, or within that brain, I should say, within the mind. So she needed to bring him back. And when he came back, they shot him. Okay, fine. I can take that. I could not take the whole David Dunn character, being drowned in a puddle. It's just like, to me, it's like you're disrespecting your own character. You're telling me this character is a superhero. This is his kryptonite. Fine, but you don't cinematically. You don't make him go out like that, like a chump. Yeah. And it's a character that you liked. It's a character that has a whole film based on it and all the rest of it. And then it's like you just sort of, he went out with a fart. I mean, that's how I see it. And almost similarly, Mr. Glass. It's like, why end it like that? They should have all been left out as potentially dead, potentially alive kind of ending. Yeah. And leave it at that, whether you bring them back later or not. Because, saying this was an origin story is basically saying, it's the other characters who are going to go on now. They're not superheroes, but it's going to be their story to lead to more superheroes, whatever, which is Bruce Willis's son and Anya Taylor-Joy and Glass's mother. They're the three characters who are now going to be continuing the story somehow, and Sarah Paulson's character will be the villain, I guess.
I didn't like the part that the whole society of superhero hunters. It's very like Shyamalan to do something like that. I'm going to explain to you what goes behind the scenes with this. I didn't like it at all.
I didn't mind it because it's in line with with comic books, which is really what this whole story is about. But I have to say that the death of the characters that are supposed to be some kind of superheroes, the way they died, that's not really in line with comic books. I don't think comic books let their heroes go out with a whimper, which is really what happened here. They could have killed them all off. I don't care. It's not about that. It just find a better way to do it. It needs to be more grand. It needs to make them look good. And here, especially, with the Bruce Willis, David Dunn character, it did not look good. It was terrible. And yeah, it just kind of made me go, nah, this film, sorry. It's like all of a sudden, it's bringing in information at the end, a little bit sort of Deus Ex Machina. And it's like, yeah, come on. Okay. Your big twist was that this was an origin story. So it's like you're directing our attention at, these three superheroes. And it's really not about them. That's what you told us. Wow. Blew my mind. Not. So, yeah. But for the most part, it's like technically it's a sound film. Production value is great. The acting, mostly is very good. It's just it lacked in that regard. It just didn't tell the right story, I thought, or not in the right way.
Well, that's that, I guess.
So that's our number 7. Well, I'll go ahead and shoot with my number 6 because you've already mentioned it on yours. But my number 6 is Split. Yeah, Split is it rates fairly highly on my list because again, I can't find too much separating it from Glass and Lady in the Water, but I liked it a bit more on the second viewing. Even though I didn't find McAvoy's multiple split personality individual, terribly, on point. I didn't think he was bad, but the premise was interesting. And Anya Taylor-Joy's character was very interesting to me. I thought it was actually, one of his better films. At one point, I actually pushed it higher up the list. And then upon sort of relooking it and rethinking, I thought maybe I'm dropping old favorites a little bit too quickly. So I dropped it down a couple of notches after that. So it's my number 6. But we talked about it enough. Number 5. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is The Visit.
Oh, okay. It's not terribly far. I'll just reveal. It's my number 3.
What you said about it before is exactly why, part of the reason why it's my number 5. It is coming back to his roots. You said was made for $5 million.
Yep.
Even though, spoiler alert, it was at some point, I caught on a little later than you did, but it was some point it was predictable what's going to happen. It was a very turbulent ride and was a fun ride. He used very simple techniques to just keep you on the edge of your seat, and I loved it about that film.
The interesting thing also is that it's a sort of an indie horror, but it kind of masquerades as a sci-fi for a while, when it keeps you guessing. You think that some aliens are involved in this. Again, spoiler alert, they're not. I did pick it early, but at the same time, because of the way it was doing what it was doing, I was somewhat questioning myself in parts, and it didn't make that much of a difference. What really helped it was that I think that by far it's Shyamalan's creepiest film.
Yes, it is.
There are moments here of sort of tension and, what people might term as jump scares. I can't say that they affected me as jump scares because they didn't make me jump, but it wasn't like a surprise. Wow. But they did add to the tension for me. And I thought that they were justified, when they were put in. So I really, really, really enjoyed this film. And I think that the two actors playing the, grandparents were fantastic because they were so creepy and believable. And then when you get to the ending and you get your big reveal, it's even more believable. You kind of go, oh, that makes sense. The other thing that the reveal and me picking it and all the rest of it, I think is also a slight flaw. Because again, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this film, please step away. But you're sending your kids to be with their grandparents without your grandparents that you haven't talked to in a long time, that you still have I don't know, not really much of a relationship with because you sort of fell out of favor in a way, whatever. They have not seen a picture of their grandparents. It's because,
Yeah,
the kids should have recognized them as such, but they don't.
they don't.
They think it's their grandparents, and I just don't understand how.
If you look at the logic, you step aside from the film and look at it from the side, it doesn't hold, doesn't make sense. A mother would send her children and would not, even speak to her parents, would not call them on the phone, would not coordinate something, just send them like they're pirates.
Because to send the kids over, she would have had to, at least on the surface, at a minimal level, made up with the parents, which she says she kind of did, but it was by email. Maybe it was by conversation, but maybe they talked on the phone. It doesn't matter, because the setup for the weekend was made with the actual grandparents, with her parents, before they were killed. But again, the kids should have known who they were about to see. You don't step off a train to another town and step off, and then you have to look around and think, okay, who looks old enough here to be our grandparents? Oh, they're holding up a sign. That must be them. They should have known that these weren't their grandparents, because they should have known what their grandparents looked like. But the thing is, I talked about the jump scares and the tension and whatever. Still, the creepiest moment, even though I knew it was coming, was when the mother sees them through the camera on the computer and says, these are not your grandparents. That was awesome.
It was awesome because it changes the film in a single line. The film changes and you go, oh shit, this is a different film now.
And the kids are still stuck there. So
said a bad word.
And to me,
it's a different film.
And to me, that's why it was number 3, because even though very, very early in the game, I picked the ending. I knew what was coming. It didn't detract from my enjoying the moment of the reveal at all. I was like, this is awesome, Yeah.
I can almost imagine Shyamalan writing this twist and getting excited. I'm going to put it in the movie. It's so awesome. They're not the grandparents.
Yeah, he should have tightened up that point somehow and explained why, or made the imposters look a lot more like the actual grandparents. But yeah, still, I think that, again, even though I don't know if I find it predictable, but I did predict it. I think there's two different things. I don't think it's predictable. I think most people will not see this coming. My mind tends to go to all the possible scenarios, at early stages of the film. And then I sort of hone in on one or two and I go, okay, I know where this is going, but it's more of like a gut feeling thing. But I don't think, most people would have seen it coming. So this film is very effective. And I'm saying, even though I felt it coming, it was still, such an enjoyable experience. I had to push it up to number 3, above a couple of films that I really, really have enjoyed from Shyamalan. But I still think this one is better. So that was your number 5.
That was my number 5. Yeah.
Okay, my number 5 is Signs.
Really?
Yep. Signs. After I saw it the first time, I think I saw it at the cinema, I didn't love it. I thought it was good, and I couldn't really point my finger at what I didn't like about it. But I think what I didn't like about it was that it wasn't as good as his previous film, which I liked a lot more. I'm not going to mention now, doesn't matter. It was in a way a disappointment. It was a follow-up that I didn't think lived up to the one before it, and it kind of took it down a little bit for me. It's a good film. It's an interesting premise, and I like the way it tells the story. I think it sets everything up a little bit too much. Again, spoiler alert, all the glasses of water around the house and stuff, you can just know that it's coming. The whole thing with Swing Away and the bat on the wall, I was like, oh, okay, that's going to come into play. It pressed a little bit too hard on many things that, of course, came in at the end. And when they came in, I wasn't surprised at all, because I was like waiting for them to come in. It wasn't, I think that the water thing was supposed to be like the twist, or the big turning point or something at the end. And I saw it coming a mile away. They even mention it, when Shyamalan's character, himself, he says, I'm going to the lake because I think they have a problem with water. He's already told us, you know what I mean? And then Mel Gibson mentions it to the family and says they might have, this problem, but they never tried to use that until it happens by accident. And also, the whole thing with the kid's asthma, it was like, okay, that's going to come into play. It's everything about it was a little bit too obvious, but I thought that all four main actors, and that is, Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix and Rory Culkin and Abigail Breslin were all really, really, really believable, really good. Really worked.
If I may add to this, in my mind, when I see a film where a child basically leads, there's a tendency to give the child adult-like perception because it may sound cool, and it's a mistake in most films. He didn't do it in this film. I loved the character. They're still children. They're innocent like children. They know they have fears like children, and they manage to carry it. I especially love, and not just Rory, but Abigail Breslin.
Yeah,
there's a monster in my room. May I have a glass of water?
There were several plot points or things that they put on certain characters that really worked. And in that respect of the kids, Rory Culkin's character being inquisitive. So he liked to research and to check a lot of things and whatever. And that's what made him lead the information into the story, for his father and his uncle. It was believable. It wasn't like, oh, this kid knows what's coming, this blah blah. He just kind of put it out there a different way. That was really great writing, I thought. Also, Mel Gibson's character being a preacher, a priest, whatever you want to call it,
a retired preacher.
Yeah, preacher. Well, retired for a specific reason.
Yeah.
That whole side plot was really, really good, I thought.
Yes.
It really, really worked. As for Joaquin Phoenix, also being, an ex-baseball player with a lot of potential and also a lot of sort of self-destructive tendencies, that really worked as well.
Yeah.
The whole story with the mother and how she died, and the fact that it was caused by a neighbor, played by Shyamalan, and all that, and the fact that they see all these little bits peppered into the story were really, really, really great.
Yeah. It's like he paused on the pain and the drama and let you, the viewer, feel what they're feeling.
As a whole, I thought that this script, on point. It was one of the better ones, coming from Shyamalan, as far as I think enough drafts may have been written here. They really did look at all these different plot points and took it where they needed to take it. And I think that was, I'm trying to say this as opposed to the ones we talked about before, where the scripts like Old, where the scripts were pretty much not finished really. Yeah, this was really good. Also, Cherry Jones as the officer was really good. She got a little bit of airtime in this one, and she was believable and sort of sympathetic and everything. Yeah, it just really, really worked. And also, the fact that all of this is happening and they're seeing proof around them in the beginning, they just don't believe it. They think it's the something or other brothers who are coming in to vandalize or to do something or prank them, and that's how real people would respond. They wouldn't believe. It would take time for the info to sink in, and and they would need more proof, and obviously here they get it. So I think it's probably like I say, I dropped it down. It's my number 5, but it's probably the first film on this list that is an 8 out of 10 and above.
There's something that's embedded inside the plot progression that you need to see it several times in order to notice it. It's not something that's embedded in the characters, it's something that's embedded in the aliens that he made. When they appear in the news or whatever, he didn't announce it, but he built it in a way that if you know what to look for, if you carefully examine the footage, then you see that the aliens are already defeated. They're looking for a way out. It's not an invasion anymore. It's another layer that he gives you. It shows how thoroughly he thought about the story.
Yeah, and that element with that final, alien, the one that stays at their place, that's one that stayed behind. The rest of them left. This was a revenge thing because he cut off his fingers. Yeah, exactly. So that was definitely an interesting element. It gave us a reason as to why there were no other aliens after this one. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. So my number 4 is The Village.
Really, it's my number 3.
Okay, that's pretty close. A lot of people don't like this film. I'm actually surprised that we both really did. So our 3, 4, 5 are the same, just in different order. Yeah. The village is an excellent one, I think. Again, it's a fairly simple story with I don't know. I mean, a lot of people would disagree with this, but I think it's a really, really great twist. I picked it later in the game than I should have in a way, or later than I usually do. I even picked the Sixth Sense twist earlier. So it's interesting because it kind of tells you somewhere along the way. But I think you just
Yeah,
kind of
he
go with
tells
the
you.
story.
Yeah.
You kind of go with the story anyway, because he did something here that he didn't do in a lot of other films. There's a love story here,
Yeah.
like a real love story, not like,
Yeah,
oh,
very
this is a
convincing
couple
one.
that are having
Yeah.
trouble and they're going to find each other again. No, this is
A young love.
an innocent young love story, which sort of drives us to that sort of reveal. I thought the reveal was maybe even a little too early. I think he should have pushed it forward a bit.
Early.
Yeah,
The reveal was
should have pushed it back
after
a
the
little.
reveal.
No, the reveal was when he takes her to the shed, when she decides to leave and go get the medicine. I picked it a little bit before then, but I thought that was a bit too early, and he should have pushed it into maybe the last 5 minutes of the film a bit, or something like that. I mean, I know that he kind of goes back on it and kind of shows you that maybe it is real, but I mean, we know it's not. It's just that she believes that it might be. So it's really an interesting twist on the story where she comes back and she all of a sudden kind of believes in the creatures again.
And he tells her that there were rumors of creatures, but nobody has ever met them. So that the viewer, you would think maybe this last monster is real,
Yeah,
that attacked her.
I had a problem with the monsters in the beginning, which is kind of what sort of gave me a hint, was the fact that they were sort of human form-ish.
It wasn't a mistake.
No, they were dressed.
Yeah.
They were wearing cloaks, and to me, a creature that has enough, I don't know, self-awareness, I guess, in a way, to wear clothing, to make clothing. I was like, okay, come on, and this is people. But still, the whole story of why the village exists and how it came to be and how they kept it under wraps and all the rest of it was really, really interesting. And the reveal was great, and the guy who helped her and the way they showed that as to how it was still kept a secret, that was really good. That still worked. I could go along with that. So no, a great film that I think gets a little bit too much criticism where it shouldn't. I think it was really good.
I think people were expecting something else. That's why it got that criticism.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension in this one as well. That's well played. I thought that the characters of I mean, in the film, I don't know if we would call them necessarily the top three characters. They're probably not. But as far as sort of actors and who they sort of came to be, but you have Joaquin Phoenix and Bryce Dallas Howard and Adrian Brody as three sort of, youngish people. You have a couple more in there, like I think it's Michael Pitt and Frank Kranz and Jesse Eisenberg. And they were all fine. Judy Greer as well as the sister. But those three of Joaquin Phoenix, Bryce Dallas Howard, and Adrian Brody, I think added a lot to this film. She's great. She does well in this role. Adrian Brody was really good. I thought was really like an interesting.
And it's an easy role to mess up. It's a very tough role to
absolutely. But sometimes just the look in his eyes was brilliant.
Glazed. You forget you're looking at Adrian Brody.
Or his reactions to certain things, even when he does bad, and the cast around them, Brendan Gleeson and Sigourney Weaver and William Hurt, Celia Weston, Cherry Jones is in this again. Really, really solid. And again, I don't know, it's like Joaquin Phoenix, when he gets put in a film, it almost never ends up being a bad film.
One sequence that it was meant to, but it's etched in my brain forever, is at the first attack. When the first attack happened in the film and they sound the bell, she waits for her loved one. She waits for Joaquin Phoenix at the entrance of her cabin, and she's very frightened. She can hear the monsters approaching her, and she has her hand reached out because she believes that he wouldn't leave her, that he'll get there on time, and he gets there right on time. And there's this whole sequence where you're focused on her relief when he comes for her. That's beautiful.
But we should mention that it's an interesting scene because she is so certain that he would come back, and when she puts her arm out, she hears the creatures coming closer, and you could tell that she she doubts it in that last second, and then he gets there.
He surprises her.
Yeah. So she was just about to think, oh my God, he's not coming. Or she was thinking that already. And then, yeah, he was there.
She's doing something that nobody would do in that place. Nobody would hold their hand and not, I mention again, she's blind.
Yeah.
There's no reason for her to risk her life.
She's partially blind, but yeah, her character, yeah, was doing a lot of things that normal people might not necessarily do, but it's justified because it's in her MO very early on. They show you she's different, she sees the world differently. I also thought that especially the three that I mentioned before as the sort of adult cast, Sigourney Weaver, William Hurt, and Brendan Gleeson were also really good in this. They added another sort of interesting dimension. So we're up to the top two.
Yeah.
So up to this point, well, we can say we have the same top two, which is interesting. I don't know if it's in the same order. So up till now, we only had one film that was exactly on the mark, which was Glass at number 7. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is The Sixth Sense.
We have the same top 2. Ding, 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 double.
Wow.
Yeah, it's my number 2 as well.
It's a very well-made film and a very sound story. What amazes me up to this day is that, spoiler alert, of course, Bruce Willis is dead at the end of it.
Well, no, he's dead at the start of it, but yeah.
Yeah, he was dead the whole time. Shyamalan screams at you that this is what's going on. Mm-hmm. But he does it so subtly that even if you're a cinephile, if you know film language, it won't be as easy to pick up.
It's not. And what I like about this is that he's misdirect as far as not letting you even. It's like he tells you what is happening, but he shows you something else.
Yeah.
And generally, people would go to the visual, and that's what happens.
Yeah, but not only that. What you said years ago when you talked about something that I haven't even noticed after a fourth viewing. You said in the scene where she talks, where Toni Collette plays the child's mother. She talks to Bruce Willis in her living room, and he walks in. The Haley Joel Osment. He walks.
She never talks to him.
She never talks to him. You see in the second viewing. Okay, he didn't really talk to anybody but the kid. But you said they're sitting in the living room, and she's wearing a house apron, and slippers, and it's of course it's a sign. She wouldn't accept her child's psychiatrist and have a chat with him when it's considered to be indecent. She's wearing a house robe and slippers.
Indecent, but yeah.
Indecent. Sorry.
But there was much more there. She doesn't, a parent would say to a kid, "Aren't you going to say hello?" Because he comes in and he totally disregards Bruce Willis, and they only talk after she leaves the room. And she gets up and goes to the kitchen, and she doesn't even say, "Oh, I'll go get you a drink. I'll go get something."
No,
she doesn't acknowledge him at all. She just walks out. And when watching it, a lot of people don't notice. To me, the plant. The seed was planted with one line. It was a line by Haley Joel Osment when he said, "They only see what they want to see."
Oh,
to me, that was writer telling me something, not the character.
Yeah. He thinks that he's talking to these people.
It's like Haley Joel Osment was saying something to Bruce Willis to tell him something. Otherwise, this point of information makes really no difference. He wouldn't have said it unless he's telling Bruce Willis, "You're not seeing, you're only seeing what you want to see." To me, the way that line was placed and how it was said, I was like, oh crap, he's dead. He's one of them, and the kid is telling him. And after that, I followed the story very intently as far as what I'm seeing on the screen to see if anyone else acknowledges Bruce Willis, and what's happening. And then, of course, it was strengthened more and more as we get to the end because nobody else talks to him and all the rest of it. He tried to veer us off the story a little bit when he showed you Bruce Willis talking to his wife, but his wife ignores him. If you have that in your mind, if you have it in your mind, she ignores him too much. But if you don't have it in your mind, you also don't notice. You think she's just giving him the silent treatment. She's upset with him, and the silent treatment. How brilliant is that, to use as a misdirect kind of tool?
Yeah, it is. But with the part where he said, "I see that people, they see what they want to see," the camera dollies in on Bruce Willis, and you think as the viewer, man, I hope he believes. This is where he directs you to let you see if the psychiatrist believes him or believes that he believes it, or he thinks, oh, he's suffering delusion. Your mind is on what Bruce Willis thinks about what the kid tells him. It's not on the, I mean, the regular viewer. It's not on the, oh wow, this is Shyamalan telling me something here, not Bruce. You know.
Yeah.
That's an example of misdirection. I really like that the whole way he orchestrated it, and
Yeah, but that line of they only see what they want to see. It kind of also made me start to sort of rethink back as to everything else that was said. But I don't know why, but it was like a big neon sign for me. But at the same time, I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. It wasn't like, oh, I picked it. Oh, okay, this is not that great. It was like, this is great, you know? And I watched the rest of it, even though I knew I wanted to, like, I waited for that theory of mine, I guess, if you want to call it that, to be proven. And when it did, I was like, oh, okay, good. I picked it right. But at the same time, I still enjoyed it. So, yeah, again, it's one of those things where Shyamalan, you know, he has a way about creating that tension and sort of letting you go along with the story. Even if you somehow picked it, you're still going to find ways to enjoy it. And again, Bruce Willis was excellent, and Haley Joel Osment was a sort of a prodigy, and Toni Collette, yeah, she's great in this. And Donnie Wahlberg, I didn't even recognize. I saw the film, I didn't know it was him. I didn't.
I did, yeah, I didn't either.
Only later.
And what I said is, in second viewing, he tells her after he gets shot, tells her it doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a cliche statement that this character is going to die.
It is. But at that point, I remember when I first saw it, I thought he was going to end up in a wheelchair. You know, I thought he was going to end up being one of those, wheelchair psychiatrists. But when it didn't happen, I thought, well, maybe, you know, that's just how they tell the story. Yeah, because he was shot in the stomach. He could have pulled through. I mean, I know the bullet was a through and through. I was surprised she wasn't trying to stop the bleeding, to block it, you know, in some way until the ambulance gets there. She didn't even call an ambulance at that point. It was
I didn't think she knew what to do.
Yeah. But again, her portrayal of the grieving wife was really good as well. Is it Olivia Williams? I think. But yeah, she was really good. It was just a really, really great film. I think the top two are far apart from the rest of the films. I think that those two are sort of near masterpieces. Whereas, you know, from number 3 down, just sort of there's a grouping of very good film, and then a grouping of not so good films. So to me, you know, Shyamalan's a bit sort of half and half. But that kind of brings us to both our number 1, and that's Unbreakable, which seems to be an unpopular choice. I don't think many people rank it as his best. I think a lot of people would go The Sixth Sense, or have gone. I mean, it's on IMDb and all the rest of it as well. But to me, Unbreakable is, I don't think it's even a question. As much as I love The Sixth Sense, I think that even the disparity between those two films is substantial. I think that Unbreakable is by far his best film. I think on concept, the concept is very, very interesting. The whole twist, I guess, at the end, you know, with Mr. Glass being introduced as that, is just fantastic. That the concept of the whole comic book thing, you know, the relationship with the wife, the relationship with the kid, you know, the fact that it brings them together, all of that, you know, it's just really, really well sort of intricate story that works. The film is very dark, which I like, because it really works to that whole you know, comic book thing.
It's a unique, never before seen take on superheroes.
The originality factor.
The originality, he found a way to connect a fantasy world with reality in a very proper way, in a convincing way. Even if you were an adult who doesn't like superheroes and comics, you would like this film. You would connect with this film. There's a particular scene there that again, in some of his films, there are these scenes that I just can't get out of my mind. It's again, spoiler alert. If you remember, we talked about this before in the recording. His kryptonite is water, and there is a point where he doubts himself, even when he goes to save people from the people who were attacked in their own home. The assailant pushes him into the swimming pool, and the children save him. And Shyamalan, I guess it's a cinematographer. Was it Eduardo Serra? I think it was him. He gets out of the pool, and there's a composition there in the shot where the camera is placed low, and he stands on both legs, and his raincoat flaps across
like a cape.
his calves like a cape, and just for a split second, he looks like a superhero with a cape.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get out of my head.
It's
with regards to
you asked me earlier, like, do I see Shyamalan as an artist? And I said, well, some of the time. This is one of those times, because this film was not shot in black and white, but it's pretty close.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's dark. It has this sort of element of blue, and it's the colors are not saturated. It's not strong. It's kept that way because it's really like a neo-noir superhero film.
Yes.
It has this noir element to it. Actually, there's a lot of detective work in it as well, which makes it, a little bit around that sort of area. And again, the supporting cast is great in this. Aside for Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, you have Robin Wright Penn playing the wife, and Spencer Treat Clark playing his son again. Well, not again, the first time. And Shailene Woodard playing the mother before she became a Muppet. So this was just excellent. I actually heard somewhere recently, Peter and I recorded an episode about Quentin Tarantino, and in looking up some stuff about Tarantino, I read that he included Unbreakable in his list of top 20 films released since 1992. So that was kind of interesting.
The first one was Con Air, right?
No, it was second.
Oh, second.
It was Ernest Goes to Camp was number one.
Oh, okay.
Joking. I don't even know what the list was, but I know that it was on it. So it's just such a great, I don't know, almost perfect film. There's nothing that I can really pick apart, in this one. On rewatch, it was as good.
The first scene in the train. This is a cinematography related praise. We meet him when he's on the verge of divorcing his wife. He takes off a ring and he hits on I think it was a sports journalist on the train.
I think she was a sports agent. Yeah,
a sports agent. And he shot that entire scene in a brilliant way. It was so simple and so engaging with the material. It's like the cinematographer was peeping on them from the back.
Yeah, I can't remember I can't remember if it was like a one shot, but I remember that it felt like one.
It was one shot. Yeah. It was. I think much of it was one shot, if not all of it. It had flow to it.
Yeah, sometimes it panned across seats, and you could only see the seats until people were revealed, whether it was him or the little girl he was looking at or stuff like that. But it was just not really well done. And again, the characters are captivating. Both David Dunn as the overseer and Glass, they were both just captivating. It was just so interesting how they came to be, what their story was, how it all ties in, and it has a very, very, very good reveal at the end. It's just all
Well, in essence, Shyamalan tells you throughout the film that Glass is the villain, because he talks about the characteristics of a villain somewhere at the beginning. The villain has a disproportionate head, and he has a disproportionate head because he has an afro.
Well, so, exactly. It's not his head; it's his hair. But it's it's there, definitely. Yeah, it has. It talks about origin stories a lot. But
and he wears such unusual clothes, and nobody gets savvy. Nobody thinks, he's the villain. He wears weird clothes.
Well, he's allowed, he's a sort of, I mean, I wouldn't have made the connection on the clothing, because
it's
again,
make the connection. Yeah.
But they portrayed it fit with his character. He was like a person who's a curator of art, which was really comics. That scene where the guy wants to buy the comics, the comic frame or whatever.
For his infant child.
It was 4 years old. But that's what Glass says to him. This is not for an infant. He refuses to sell it to him. But I thought about that. That the wig that they put on on Samuel L. Jackson reminded me of like Frederick Douglass, sort of African American statesman, in the U.S. But he wore it down, and in Glass it's sort of like a cross, like it's sort of puffed up. And yeah, it's a very interesting look because it's sort of a little bit askew and more on one side, like that's his style. And his style is I don't give a shit, I'm broken anyway. I'm gonna look anyway. I'm gonna look. So, and again, of course, Shyamalan makes a cameo in this as he does in everything else.
I forget who's Shyamalan in this.
He's a guy at the sports stadium who buys or sells drugs or something, but he does it in the toilet and he drops it off.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
He checks him out and he doesn't find it because I think he left it in the toilet for someone or something like that. But then he quickly, his attention is drawn to the guy, to someone else. Yeah, it was strange to me that this film was, while reviews have been more positive than negative, there's also a bit of negative. Like it didn't score as highly as I would have thought. They said that
people would just.
The main criticism was that the ending of Unbreakable was weaker than Sixth Sense and therefore not as good. I actually think it's stronger than Sixth Sense. It's more interesting. It's an original concept. The Sixth Sense is not original. It's been done before. Where you have a character who's really dead throughout the story and all the rest of it. But
the effect. Yeah, they're talking about effect, not originality.
Exactly. They called it like saying it was like quietly suspenseful.
Yeah, that's the essence of the criticism on Unbreakable. People are saying to Shyamalan, you blew our minds with Sixth Sense, and this didn't quite do the job. So it's less good than.
I think it's much better. But yeah, it's funny. Like even I think it was Roger Ebert. He scored it somewhere around because he does. I think his scoring was out of 4 stars or whatever, and he scored it like 3 out of 4. And he said he largely enjoyed it, but again, he was disappointed with the ending because it didn't have the same impact. Calling it subtle. I didn't think it was. I thought it was more mind-blowing in a way than Sixth Sense. To me, what was mind-blowing was not so much the twist, but was how they kept it all the way to the twist, and how the story was kept so tight and so well done. And also, the potential sort of possibilities of where it could go from there. But yeah, just a great film. And I think, I don't know, maybe over time it will actually go up in people's minds as far as how good this film really is.
It doesn't really matter, but yes, I hope so too. And for the sake of the premise, there's a part that the viewer, you think maybe Sam Jackson's character is full of crap. Maybe it's not true. It makes you think that. But from the end sequence where the doctor talks to him in the hospital, there's no way in hell for this man, for Dunn, not only to not be injured in the train wreck, but not to have a mark on him. It doesn't make any sense. So he tells you from the get-go that this man is a superhero.
And the beautiful thing is, when Samuel L. Jackson at one point sort of describes, a superhero and his, villain nemesis, basically being at opposite ends of the spectrum, it tells you, one is Unbreakable, one is Glass, And there's 2 scenes that really set that up, that he shows you visually, but we don't really think of it at the time. Was the birth scene when soon after Samuel L. Jackson's born, a doctor comes in and he thinks that people have dropped the baby or done something to it because, so many, like his arms and legs were broken as he was born that way, and he says, he must have experienced some kind of impact, I don't know, in the uterus. It's like, what? And you kind of watch it, it's intriguing. It's not something that you've seen before, and the way that scene was put together. And then you have the scene after the train wreck when Bruce Willis is in the hospital, and there's another person being treated in the bed sort of not far from him. And the doctor tells him, in a few minutes, you are going to be the sole survivor. of the train wreck. That was nice touch, you know. They could have just said to him, "You are the sole survivor. Everybody else died." But instead, they had a person being treated there who was just about to die.
Yeah, they wanted you to be as astonished as the doctor was.
Yeah,
That
so
was
the
the
doctor
purpose.
is just, you know, like thinking this guy is the luckiest man in the world, not a scratch on him, and he just walks out after, you know, that big of a train wreck when everybody dies, and Samuel L. Jackson was born broken, and it's like, wow. You know, those two scenes really told you the end.
Yeah, they tell you, these are two sides of a coin.
Yeah, and at that point, I think Shyamalan, in the way he wrote scripts and the way he put his vision together for the films, in both The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, and in some ways The Village, maybe Signs, but Signs it wasn't done as well. He told you the ending, and he revels in telling you the ending, and you still not noticing it. Yeah. It's intriguing. It really is.
He doesn't lie to you; just deceives you in a very clever way.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's not deceiving you unfairly, as
it's misdirecting you, as you said before. He's misdirecting you, but he gives you the information. You just, if you wanna find it out early, then look deeper. I'm telling you what this is all about.
Yeah, to me, misdirecting is when done well, it's really great in filmmaking, because it keeps you guessing, it keeps you looking. You're constantly working when you're watching the film to try to decipher, you know, the clues and to work it out. But in other films, you know, I've referred to it as cheating, where basically you have no chance of picking the ending, and the ending is just dropped on you at the end. So yeah, luckily that's not the case here. It's not really the case in Shyamalan films, I don't think. But I really hope that, you know, The Sixth Sense was made in 1999 and Unbreakable in 2000, and I think he hasn't been the same since. He's come up with some pretty good stuff in there, but you know, nowhere near that type of quality. You know, even The Visit, which is like my number 3, and in 2015 I always refer to it as somewhat of a comeback, because I think it was pretty good again, you know, we're going in that direction of those top 2 films. But he hasn't reached it. He's gone sort of backwards, you know, since as well, with Split and Glass and Old, you know. What are you going to do? I hope he finds that form again and finds these really original, fresh, interesting ideas.
Yeah, I think we haven't heard the last of him, but I'm hopeful as well.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think so either. I think he's, you know, he's still got a fair way ahead of him. He's not old by 50. Any means.
Yeah, 51.
Yeah. Oh God, you know, I mean, it's funny for me that I'm like, you know, kind of critiquing him. He's only like 4 years older than me, you know, and
really?
how much he's made, you know, in his career, and I don't even come close to that. But that's why, you know, even though I have a lot of criticism, you know, to do with some of his work, it's you know, really how I feel about it. But I'm a fan, you know, and whenever Shyamalan comes out with a film, I go looking for it. And a lot of people, like I said, you know, because of the criticism that they put on his films, they started criticizing him not only as a director, but in some ways kind of as a person, which I think is just bullshit. But you know, he could be an asshole. I mean, I don't know him, but why would I assume him to be one? You know?
No, they started giving him the stink eye when we talked about before. I'll say it really short and then we can conclude. When we talked about A Lady in the Water, before he had made this film, he had a falling out with Disney, and as the film came out, he also put out a book that his friend wrote, I forget the name of the author, entailing the relationship between Shyamalan and Disney. Look at how these studios fail to see how much of a genius I am. That's the essence of the book. And the book was poorly received, and subsequently the film was poorly received because they came out at the same time.
Yeah, but again, you know, I think what happened with the fans, let's call it, or with viewers, the drop-off started after Signs. So basically The Village was the first one that people started criticizing. They didn't like it. They thought he was too, I don't know, like he was trying to manufacture a twist. You know what I mean? It's like all about twist, which is something that actually I haven't talked about today, but I planned to. I forgot about it. But Shyamalan's films are not all of them, but a lot of them, the majority of them, have some sort of a twist and are basically not really made for rewatching. You know, you have to kind of enjoy it or experience it the first time. And then, I don't know, when you go back to watching it again, if you already know the ending, the experience is gone. So you only go to do an autopsy and work out, you know, where you should have worked it out and if everything is in line, that kind of thing. But they're never really to be enjoyed again as a film. And that's because the twist endings play such a huge part in them. And I think that's why I prefer Unbreakable to The Sixth Sense, because the twist ending there is not what the film is about. It's not the film, whereas with The Sixth Sense it is.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but on the whole, I think he's has a very interesting way of looking at things. He comes up with very interesting ideas. I think he should go back to working on a film for a fairly long time, or not necessarily a long time, but just putting in the time, to go through the script, to work it out, to make it as close and as tight as you can before going out and shooting something. Old should have never been shot in that way. The Happening even shouldn't have, but for whatever reason, they end up, sometimes going that way. But yeah, he's all over the shop a bit. It's like these films are so different as far as the quality that it's, but you know what he's capable of, and that's what I kind of try to hang on to. And I'm interested to see, what he comes up with next. All right, so let's recap. You want to go through your 14 from 14 to 1?
Yeah, I'll go through mine. Okay, at number 14, The Last Airbender. At number 13, The Happening. At number 12, Split. Number 11 is After Earth. Number 10 is Wide Awake. Number 9 is Praying with Anger. Number 8 is Old. Number 7 is Glass. Number 6 is Lady in the Water. Number 5 is The Visit. Number 4 is Signs. Number 3 is The Village. Number 2 is The Sixth Sense. And number 1, Unbreakable.
Okay, and my top 13, no Wide Awake for me because I haven't finished watching it, although I'm sure it'll probably play somewhere in the bottom 4 or 5. My number 13 is Praying with Anger, 12, The Last Airbender, 11, The Happening, 10, Old, number 9, After Earth, number 8, Lady in the Water, number 7, Glass, number 6, Split, number 5, Signs, number 4, The Village, number 3, The Visit, number 2, The Sixth Sense, and number 1, Unbreakable. But on that note, we'll end it here. So thank you, Asaf, for being with us today and giving us your input as to Mr. M. Night Shyamalan. And hopefully we'll do it again soon on a different filmmaker, actor, whatever we come up with. So let's do it again soon.
Let's.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, for being with us today. And again, thank you, everyone, for your support. Please go and check previous episodes. And feel free to subscribe, like, follow. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Best and Worst podcast.
We'd like to thank everyone who joined and listened to the show. We appreciate you all and hope you'll keep coming back for following episodes. A big thank you goes out to Tam Heinjus for helping us out tremendously and voicing our intro, and Scott Martin for working his magic on the intro sound edit. Also, a big thank you goes out to Asaf Angel for all the help with the logo design. Great work, everyone. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you.
If you like the show, then please recommend the podcast to your family and friends, and subscribe, share, follow, leave a comment. You know the drill. For more information, please check out the show notes. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week.